I felt there was a good bit of action going on there. Hey, how you doing, Dr. Tony? How's it going?
I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Good, good, good. I
All right.
appreciate the intro there, Emilio. That was very creative, sir. Thank you.
I saved you guys. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. I'm
Yeah.
pretty much the hero of the group. Just so
Well,
you know,
I
it was
noticed,
by default.
yes, with the armor and the sword that dictated who was running the show. So thank you for
Just
that.
saying. Just saying.
All right, all right. Well, welcome everyone. We're going to get together today and we're going to talk about the RBLP Coach certification. A lot of people ask questions about that, especially people who are looking at getting certified. And a lot of times they say, well, I don't know which one's right for me. And of course, on our website, we can certainly break it down for folks. RBLP for frontline and middle managers, RBLP Coach, and then for senior leaders and managers, RBLP Trainer. So there's 3 levels, and we're going to talk about RBLP Coach today. So, Dr. Tony, let me ask you a question here. So how many, I know you handle and oversee all the exams and stuff. So how many folks come through that sit for RBLP Coach? Just off the top of your head, is it a good number? Is it average? What do you think?
No, it's definitely a good number. I would say that's probably the second most popular one that we see right now is the RBLB Coach certification. So
Yeah.
That's it. There are a good amount of people looking to get that certification because that is for the managers that are new, aspiring managers, or for the RBLP that we've talked about previously. That coach one is for those experienced managers looking to level up their skill set, and the RBLP Coach certification is perfect for that.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And with the RBLP, as Tony mentioned, is that's sort of the foundation. That's what we're talking about because everybody starts somewhere. And it's the competency domains are create a positive climate, develop cohesion, and provide purpose. You as a leader, you may not have the authority yet to like change the department or move things around, but you make sure that you are creating a positive climate, developing cohesion with your team, and providing purpose. And once people understand those 3 things, you'll see a team become tighter. Now, as you move into the coach, you're talking about those 3 competency domains I mentioned, and on top of that, facilitate team learning. And we're not talking about team training here. We're talking about team learning, and that means going through the experiential learning cycle and as a team, figuring out what's working and what's not, and why is that, and have discussions and open thought about that. It's because we have to get to what right looks like, and right doesn't show us itself right away. Sometimes we have to go through that cycle multiple times to keep inching towards it. And then we find out what really the touchdown is, if you might say, for finding the secret sauce. So, hey, so Emilio, have you? I know you've done training in the day and stuff, and work with people, and the folks who did RBLP Coach and got the exam prep training and got through the first 3, and then got to the 4th and 5th competency domain of facilitate team learning. What's been your thoughts on that? People you've worked with.
It seems to open their eyes. So they have that foundation from the first 3 modules, and they're like, okay, I've got that. And then they start expanding on those next 2 modules, and it's like, oh, again, hey, we're gonna ring that bell again. It's a light bulb moment, again, where it's like, oh, this I've been trying or doing this. I just haven't had a, a framework around it before. Like we've been kind of shooting from the hip kind of thing, but now I know kind of how to, if you will.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly the things that I've seen over the years. And Dr. Tony, you have any thoughts on that as far as that transition when you're moving from that frontline manager to that more senior manager?
Yeah, exactly. To go along with what Emilio said, is a lot of people, you'll say, oh yeah, like we've been doing that kind of in a way, and really they've never really been taught, or they don't have the terms to associate it with.
Right.
And then when they hear these terms, they're like, oh yeah, that's what it is. I didn't know there was an actual word or domain that it was. Just because something's not written down and taught academically doesn't mean it doesn't exist, right? But
right.
And they're doing that, but then they come to find out, they do the training. Oh, this actually exists. There's a nomenclature. There are specific terms that are used, and this is where a lot of people do struggle on the exam because they're not used to the specific terms. Some of them can be a little more academic when we start talking about, mental models in the coach exam. So it's definitely an area that people need to work on a little bit more and study more, because we start getting into that team aspect, and we're looking at how teams change. And you have to understand how that happens. Without understanding that properly, you're not going to be able to effectively lead your team through a learning cycle. And that's what the coach exam test is, that facilitate team learning. So once you understand the foundations of these, usually they're new terms. As I said, they usually understand a concept of it, but they haven't had the specific terms or the academic training associated with the new leader tasks. Once they kind of understand, all right, there are terms associated with this, and then they'll kind of have to dig a little bit deeper into it, understand the inner workings of it, and then they can apply it. And that's where that big difference comes between the coach exam and the entry RBLP exam, is that, hey, we're looking at experienced managers now. They've worked with teams, right? The P exam is more about, those first entry level leadership positions. You're supervising a small team. You're working on a team, getting together, completing tasks, managing day-to-day operations of a team. The coach exam, you're leading big teams, big projects, small departments. And that's where that shift in kind of looking at, managing those individuals to managing a team and outcomes with the coach exam is what the big differentiator is. And you really need to understand that the terms and the increase in the complexity of just managing a small team where you're managing big projects and departments.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because when people start diving into it and they go through it, the first, the first competency domain you get to there is analyze team learning capacity, right? So that's important. And you want to know, are your teams moving from where they've experienced something, it's happened, whatever that was, we did that. Then we get back together and we start reflecting. Okay, how did that go? What went well? What didn't go so well? Why do you think that is? Or what do you think we should do instead? This is where you see a team come together and they start going, well, hey, boss, I saw something earlier I think we could probably do that would alleviate that, and have those discussions. And then we start, jotting that down, figure out how we do our process, whatever that is for that action, and we make it better. But then at the end of all of that conversation and good ideas, a boss has to really kind of slap the table and make a decision. Yeah, we're moving out in that direction. Let's update our processes, our steps and procedures. That sounds way more effective. We're going to give that a shot and see how that works, right? What I've seen over the years is that people, obviously the experience happens, they can do reflecting, they get that. But sometimes bosses will be real hesitant about making a decision. Now, I'm not saying you need to willy-nilly run into things just, blindly, but you need to have a good, willing thought pattern going forward to go, okay, I'm going to make the decision. We're going to see how this works. And you know what? It might be better. It might be worse. We don't know. But we can sit here all day long and wonder about it. What we need to do is do something about it and see if it really works. And I will tell you, my experience has been majority of the time, it is better than the goat rope and the mess we had going on earlier while we were trying to get through this. It's much smoother. People are better, well connected. Everybody knows their part a little better. They're in stations instead of just wandering around. That worked way better. And then you have to act. You have to act on it. You have to just go do it. You have to update your processes. And then we go through the experiential learning cycle again and go, okay, team, let's huddle up. How did that go? Well, hey, boss, that was way better than it was last time. Yeah, that went great. That went great. But, I noticed something. And we keep doing this until we get to what, quote unquote, right looks like. We don't know what that is yet because we're figuring this out as we go. We have some good ideas, but, when they say good ideas never meet contact with the enemy, you get out there, it sounds great until it all goes to heck in a handbasket, right? So those are important things that people need to be doing in this section right here. So have you experienced conversations with that? Emilio, have you seen that? Folks going, I don't know. Have you seen folks, bosses not willing to make a decision and kind of slap the table and say, this is where we're going. Let's do it. Let's try it.
That seems to be the consensus for a lot of guys. A lot of guys and gals I've had interaction with through this course is a lot of indecisiveness from the boss, and that's the issue. A lot of stuff like that, trying to slap the table and let's move forward. Let's try it. you know, if we, I always say there's no failed process at the end of the day, because you just know that's the way it doesn't work. So now we add that to this side of the list, and say, okay, we don't do this way because of this, but at least try it, kind of thing.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, you're on mute, Mark. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
Dr. Tony, any thoughts on that to add to what Emilio shared?
yeah. I mean, when you're talking about walking through that experiential learning cycle, which is part of the curriculum in that coach phase in that module. And said you can go through, experience something, talk about it, decide something. But so we talk about bias for action, right? And if that doesn't happen, you can't learn, right? Because if you don't actually implement something, change something, you're not going to get a different experience. It's just going to be the same thing over and over. So yes, it's great to reflect and talk about everything that happened. And in that reflection phase, there's a lot of stuff that kind of ties back into the RBLP material, right? If you're going to have some reflecting, right, you want people to talk, right? And we talked about building that positive climate in the RBLP, in those first 3 modules. That you need a good climate in order, to get people to talk and to talk about the experience. And in this phase, or in this module for the coach, we talk about that psychological safety, where we want people to feel okay to speak up and talk about it. But getting back to the acting part, right? We want all that to happen. We want them to talk. We want that. We also talk about shared decision making in that initial RBLP exam as well. So we want to involve everybody in the decision, right? We make the decision, and then we got to implement it, right? And that's where the rubber meets the road, right? Just talking about something, hey, I think this will work, right? We can't talk about it. Let's do it. Let's act, right? If you don't act, that change won't occur. You need to act to make sure that experience changes, and it should change for the better.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And just going forward from there, we talk about orienting on team goals, right? And you have individual goals. Everybody goes through that one-on-one with the boss, and they set that up for, either the quarter or the fiscal year, however. But we have to also remember, as a leader and coaches out there leading their teams to success, they want to make sure they have team goals, right? What should the team achieve together? They all have their individuals. And then also it comes into stretch goals, right? Stretch goals, some people aren't familiar with it initially when they see it, but when they read about it, they go, oh, okay, I see what we're doing there. Stretch goal is like, here's your scope. I want you to check into this, just slightly over the line, because I want you to learn a little bit more. We're getting into this area, so I need somebody to know. So you and pick 2 other people. I want you to read up on this and bring it back to the team. So those stretch goals are things that people will start doing to kind of take them out of their comfort zone, to learn a little bit more and gain more knowledge that could probably come back and help the team a great deal. And we're always looking for that unity of effort, right? Everybody working together, rowing in the same direction. If somebody sees something, they, whoa, hey, this is not working over here. We've got to do it. And to be more a part of the solution versus just being a standby citizen going, yep, that went horrible. Oh, well, I guess they probably should fix that. No, do you need to say something to fix that? Okay. And you're not sequestered in the corner. I want you to wave your hands and go, hey, it's not working. Here's what we're seeing. And we need to take action. So when you orient on team goals, those are important things to do, that everybody has an equal contribution that they need to bring to the table, not just sit idly by and watch things buzz by. Any thoughts on that, Emilio?
Yeah, you kind of create a new standard if you do that, right? If you just kind of idly stand by and just watch it, and watch the whatever happened in the background and not do anything about it. And that's why you have to have that positive climate at your work. If you don't have you don't feel comfortable enough to say, hey, I don't think that's exactly right, or hey, how about this, or hey, I got these 3 options, right? If you don't have that positive climate, you don't get to do that, right? And then the learning cycle ends at that point in time. It never started, right? It started clicking up like a roller coaster, and then just fell back down to the start house. So
Yep.
you've got to kind of have you got to have that positive climate, or at least a nice climate, a nice work environment, to be able to kind of speak up and say, hey, I think we could do it this way, or I think that's right, or you can just say, yeah, that's right too. I like that.
Mhm.
Help them,
Mhm.
affirm it. So that's what
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Dr.
Yeah.
Tony, anything to add to that?
Yeah, you had mentioned stretch goals, and when we're
Mhm.
talking about team learning, that's very important. As you said, a stretch goal is it stretches you, right? You should feel some tension in that, right? That's the point of a stretch goal, is to kind of, as you said, think outside the box. It should get you outside your comfort zone, because if you're just doing the same thing day in, day out, it's hard to grow. It's hard to progress. You need to have some tension to put on you to go that much further. And usually those stretch goals, you have to learn something new. You have to develop a new skill in order to try to achieve that. And that's another aspect of that team learning, that, hey, if there's no stress there, positive stress, all right, we want some healthy stress. It
Mhm.
should be stimulating stress. That's what that
Right.
stretch goal is. And when you get that tension, it's going to help you grow.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the other leader tasks in here and facilitating team learning and earning your RBLP coach certification is encourage constructive dialogue. So as a leader, I think should go without saying, but not everybody gets it. That basically constructive dialogue is how we get through the experiential learning cycle. There's no such thing as a bad idea. Observations, I need to hear them all. What are you seeing over there? What are you seeing here? And people need to have the psychological safety within that team to know, hey, I kind of got something, but I don't know if it's really important. But let's hear it. That might be the key we were all looking for and nobody else saw. So that's what leaders are responsible for, creating that psychological safety within the team so people can speak up, share ideas, and report back on what they're seeing and any ideas that the team might have huddled together to talk about. But again, that has to be with active listening, and that's tough sometimes for leaders when they want to just cut people off and just move on to stuff. You got to hear them out. Obviously, you want to summarize, you want to make sure we're all on the same page, but that's one of the things that's pretty important in the module 5 as you go through it. And that's important stuff. Any thoughts on that? I'll go to Dr. Tony. What do you think?
Yeah, you definitely need to listen to everybody. And a lot of that ties back, and said, the thing is about the RBLP, the whole process, it's scaffolding, right? You have the RBLP, the C, and then the T. And all these concepts build on each other. And we talk about that conceptual aspect of it, where
Right.
everything's interrelated, right? You
Mm-hmm.
need to listen to people, right? You need to respect everybody's opinion, right? And that's what we talk about in the modules associated with the P exam, right? Respect.
Mm-hmm.
In that climate, right? You have to listen to what everybody has to say. We talk about humility in that first one, right? As a leader,
Mm-hmm.
if you just think that you're the best and you have
Right.
an idea, we're just going to do that, and you do it without talking to your team,
Right.
that's not the appropriate way to go about it, right? You have to listen to everybody. If you start to just make decisions on your own without involving your team, you're not going to get them to follow along, because they're going to be,
Yeah.
oh, this guy knows everything. Why even chime in? And that doesn't
Right.
create that psychologically safe environment. It turns people off, and they just shut down. And then you're not getting all the feedback and all those diverse perspectives that you need, right? When in the
Right.
team learning process, you need to listen to everybody and get those diverse perspectives in order to get the best decision.
Absolutely. Emilio, any thoughts to add to that? In constructive dialogue?
I'd like to add something, but I don't have anything to add. He hit everything, so really,
Just took
I
all the
would just
wind out of
I would just be talking to talk like I'm doing right now, so you can hear my voice.
it. And we appreciate your voice, sir. It,
Oh,
it's kind of funny you mentioned that because uh, when I retired, back in the day, years back, one of the things I went in the private sector and I was working, and I remember being on a site and we were working through stuff, and one of the technicians says, "Hey, we're doing with X, Y, Z, A, B, C, this, that, and the other, and so forth, so on." And said, "What should we do?" I said, "That's a great question." I said, "I have no earthly idea what we should do." I said, "But here's what I do know. I want you to grab the people over here on the floor, working the sessions. I want these people over here, and give me 2, 3 from each section over here, and let's go back into the conference room, man. Let's hammer this out." Oh, okay.
yeah,
And because here's the deal. These people were duty experts. I was managing the whole crew. I understood the concepts, but that's not what I do for a living. But what I do know is these people do. And what's funny is they kept coming to the guy who has to organize and run all this, but at the same time, they never even spoke to those people. Here's a concept. How about we pull the people who are experts that's been doing it for, like, I don't know, 15, 20 years. Maybe we get their take on it. Oh, you think
yeah,
so? Yeah, yeah, I do. What? Yeah, of course. Because that's where the true power is. A leader has to have that humility to realize you are not the one guy knows it all. You're not. You're just not. I know you think you are, and that's great and good on you. And you're probably a very smart person, but you need to lend your courtesy and respect to those who are doing the do, so you can bring them into it and get their take, and then analyze that. Is it cost effective? All those kind of things you have to go through. But that is important to get done. And the last thing I want to talk about here, in heading towards the end zone here, is that this fourth competency domain about building new mental models. Okay. Building new mental models. And sometimes you find that people cannot let go of the past. They just, well, that's the way we've always done it. How's that working? Well, we're way behind. I'm just saying, maybe we need a new way. Okay. Yeah. How your evaluation's not so good. We're always behind. Could we find a different method? I don't know. Never thought about it. And literally no one has asked them, what do you think we could do better? So that is a really, really important part, that a lot of times leaders, when it comes to building a new mental model, you're going to have to change whatever you fell in love with. It's not good anymore. I don't know how to break it to you. I don't know how to hurt your heart here or anything, but the truth is it's not working. It's just not.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's not working, let's change it. Right. And a lot of times people will hesitate and they'll live in the past. They just can't turn loose of it. And that's detrimental to any team, because the motivation goes down. They keep getting, the side eye from the general manager. It's all bad. And the leader should take control of that and go, okay, let's get together. Let's talk about this. And so when you get into that, Dr. Tony, talk to us about the two different types of mental models, about the single and double loop learning concept.
Yeah, and as I mentioned in the beginning, this is one of the concepts that many people struggle with. So if you're going to be looking to take the RBLP Coach exam, listen up. This is some important stuff. So when we look at those mental models, we talk about single loop learning and double loop learning, and we talk about improvement, and we talk about innovation. And in order to change, you have to change your mental model, and that mental model can change by one, changing the construct that you have for understanding something, right? If this is the way you've done something and this is your understanding of it, sometimes you have to challenge that and say, should I be looking at it this way? Is there something different or something new that can replace this? And you break that existing mental model down and build a new one. And that's that double loop learning, right? You're challenging that existing construct, that existing understanding, that framework that you have, breaking it down and building a new one. And that is building a new mental model, and that's required for change. And the single loop learning is more of that improvement, right? You're working within that understanding you have, that construct that you have, the way that you understanding that conceptualized framework, you're still solving problems within that framework. And that's the big difference between the single loop learning and the double loop learning, where single loop learning, you still solve problems within that mental model you have. And that double loop learning, you have to break down that existing mental model, build a new one. And that's how that double loop learning takes place.
Yeah, that's spot on. It's kind of funny because sometimes, you'll have folks who will see this in the training in the past that I've done and Emilio's done and doing the exam prep training. Folks are like, okay, hold on. Let me make sure I understand this. Like, I read it, I'm ready, I'm prepared, but there's a single and double loop learning. And I think you hit on something really important there where, in double loop learning, you have to go all the way back and say, hey, why do we do it this way again? Well, we've always done it that way. But it doesn't seem to work so well. That's just the way it's always been. Well, guess what? It's not working. So let's put our heads together and figure out what we can do. And in the double loop, as you mentioned, whatever you knew it to be, I promise you, it won't be that anymore when we're done. It's going to look whole new, different, and aligned and built differently, because this is not working. It's not getting the work done. We're always behind. All right. So we're dealing on a 10 or 12-year-old or 15-year-old system that needs to be innovated and upgraded, but nobody's done the work. Nobody wants to do the effort. And guess what? We can do it better. And when teams hear that, they get energized. All right. Some people will want to hang on to the past. It's don't move my cheese. I know where it's at. I don't want to learn anything new. Stop. Right. But that's not going to work. It's not going to work in industry and in the workplace. It's just not, because companies have to evolve, and that's just a fact. So, a lot of times people say, hey, I don't know. I watched your video and saw this. I don't know if I could learn all that. Sure you could. And here's the deal. I'm going to say it this way. What you're going to learn, you've already come across. You may not have called it that, but you'll recognize it as you start digging in, and you'll go, oh, I didn't know that had a name. First of all. Second of all, I like it. Now I got a name to call it. That's a good thing. And I feel more comfortable. And that starts taking over as you go through, the exam prep training, and you work through that, and you start saying, you know what, I've said this for years. I thought I was crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm okay. Yeah. Because you don't have a name or title to it. And these things do exist in academia. They talk about them all the time, but sometimes in the workplace, you don't hear about them. And I think you mentioned that in the beginning, Tony, is that, hey, I don't know what that term means. Sure you do. And when you read about it, you go through the curriculum, and you're in your exam prep training session with your authorized training partner, you're working through that. People are like, oh, they'll connect the dots, and they do a great job at it.
Yeah, exactly. As we did touch on that, the prep training, exam prep training provides kind of the it's almost like a nomenclature, a taxonomy of all these concepts that, they've probably experienced, but they didn't know there were specific terms that they could use to talk about it. And the framework of the RBLP provides everything, lays it out clear. And that's another reason why the RBLP framework is so great. It's just so simple that everybody can look at it and be like, oh man, yeah, I've done this before. I didn't know it was called this, or I didn't know that, these other things, translated over to it. But it provides that framework for everybody to learn and grow, and ultimately be a better leader because of it.
Absolutely. Emilio, any thoughts there, sir, as we go to wrap up here?
Once again, Tony said it all. I like to add something, but he took all the words. I was going to say exactly the same. But I do want to tell everybody that I did put a link in the chat here for all the groups that are out there. It is the website for the RBLPC website explanation. But I'm also going to read a little portion of the website off to everybody so we can wrap this up with a nice little bow to start it off and finish it off. So RBLP Coach is our leadership certification for experienced managers. Experienced managers usually oversee project teams or a larger department with multiple teams. Their role shifts from direct supervision to problem solving, implementing change, continuous improvement, and innovation. Experienced managers are responsible for analyzing performance, implementing strategies aligned with the broader organizational goals. They encourage reflective practices, promote feedback loops, implement systems that allow teams to assess their success and challenges. Now, if that sounds like you, then RBLPC is for you.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, that wraps us up in a very nice bow. Thank you for that, sir. I appreciate it. Spot on.
Do my
that
best.
Wraps us up for today. Emilio?
I will
Can't
tell
wait to
everybody
see what the outro is this week.
Yes.
it's just the logo, guys. Nothing more. So I will say once again, if you missed this live event, like many people do, they watch it on you can either watch it again on YouTube. You can find it on our social media apps: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, X, and there's probably one more, Facebook, out there. You can also find this on Spotify and iHeartRadio. These are all the platforms you can listen to this and the other shows that RBLP produces on a weekly basis. So I thank everybody for coming. Mark, Dr. Tony, I appreciate the time. And until next Tuesday, same bat time, same bat channel.
All right.
That's old. That's old, isn't it? Everybody got that one?
Yeah, we got that one.
See you guys later.
Take care, everybody.
Have a good one, everybody.
RBLP. Learn more, lead better.
Once again, we'll see you guys next week. See ya.